Welcome into a special edition of the New York Sports Rush. I'm John Jastrzemski, and I'm fired up to talk some Giant football. West Virginia, done and dusted. Preseason, about to get underway. And I think there are a whole lot of fascinating elements with this team. About damn time, we welcome in Art Stapleton. He kills it, covering the Giants, all things Giants, on the record. Art, are you happy to be back from West Virginia, first things first?
No doubt, JJ. It was a good 12 days, but 12 days in the hills of West Virginia, it was time to come back home to Jersey and New York. That's for sure.
Well, I understand that from a media perspective. Now, from a team building perspective, from a first-year head coach perspective, do you think the whole remember the Titans angle in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia, not having guys – hey, with the backyard of New York and New Jersey and the city and the Jersey Shore and the Hamptons, all as distractions for the early portion of training camp. Do you get the sense, Art, this will end up being a good thing for the Giants in year one of the Harbaugh era?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, but JJ, John Harbaugh knows this. This isn't his first rodeo, so to speak. I mean, he had 12 days there. They had one off day. So they were practicing. They were going through. After they had their first off day, he went right through 6 straight practices. 5 were in pads, full pads. So he knew. I mean, I think they were off day. I mean, some guys did some fishing. I know other guys went to go see Spider-Man. But other than that, it was football, football, football. So for a team that's trying to learn how to win, it doesn't hurt that you have a head coach who kind of has the blueprint.
No doubt about it. You've been around him now for a couple of months. You meet him at the presser. You go through OTAs. You now have gone through a couple of weeks in West Virginia at training camp. Other than the intense nature of what you're seeing from these practices, which is probably something you did not see in the last couple of years, or what's kind of been your grand takeaway being around John Harbaugh, getting to take John Harbaugh in?
You know, JJ, I got to go back to when I was a young reporter in the NFL with Tom Coughlin with the Giants. And, it was that time frame. It was always when Tom walked in the room, you kind of sat up a little bit because you didn't know him. You didn't have that relationship with him yet. And then over the years with the Giants and the failed head coaches that they've had, you just kind of, I don't know, lack it. Maybe you walk into a press conference unprepared and you say, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to go on the fly and they'll ask questions. Well, John Harbaugh does not allow anyone in that organization to do anything on the fly. He holds everybody accountable. He's unafraid of challenging people. And that goes from the beat writers in press conferences. That goes from people in the equipment room, ownership, players, his assistant coaches. I mean, John Harbaugh wants the why. I mean, we hear all the time about why. John Harbaugh sees a mistake on the field. He will go to a player, doesn't matter what caliber of player, and he will want to know the why. Why did you make that mistake? What did you see? And if the player gives him an answer, then he'll sit and he'll talk as a coaching point. But if a player wants to BS him, JJ, John Harbaugh ain't about the BS, I tell you that much. And that's a big change for the Giants.
I love this. I absolutely love this. Now, here's the problem, Art. I think a lot of people are going to look at the Giants and they're going to say, hey, they got a chance to be last year's Patriots. Coach comes in with an unbelievable resume. Second-year quarterback. Team that was as rotten and as vile as can be a year ago with how things were going wrong. The schedule is not the way the Patriots schedule is set up. You don't have 4 automatic wins within the division. The NFC is tough to begin with. So why do I bring all of that up? Am I crazy to say, Art, their Vegas win total is at 7.5 games? I think if we're sitting here in mid-December and the Giants are like in the playoff mix, they're around 500, they're growing. Even if they fall short and they go 7-10, even if they go 8-9, to me, that is a step in the right direction for the organization. Am I setting the bar too low for year one of Harbaugh? It's not that they can't make the playoffs. It's not that they can't go and have a winning season. But listen, I think you got to be reasonable with the expectations. Fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think reasonable is right around that 500 mark. I mean, look, John Harbaugh had 18 seasons in Baltimore, 3 losing seasons. So, the man knows how to win games. Not every Baltimore, for years we all thought, the Ravens were, deeply talented and everything else. I mean, there were some growing pains in there as well, and yet he only had 3 losing seasons, including one last year that turned out to be his last. And maybe if the rookie field goal kicker hits a field goal, Harbaugh's not here and he's still in Baltimore because they get on a run in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing 8 wins, 9 wins. I mean, maybe things go really good. Maybe Abdul Carter becomes a top 5 defensive player in the league. Maybe Jaxson Dart does hit his stride earlier with this team. Maybe Neighbors comes back healthy and becomes a top 5 wide receiver in this season. So there's a lot that goes on. I think there's also the regression factor for the other teams on their schedule. I think there have been teams that have gone through rough patches that we've always seen the Giants in that rough patch. Maybe they can take advantage of some of that on their schedule. How good are the Lions going to be? Are the Eagles 1 or 2 bad injuries up front away from turning into a team that is a shell of its former self that dominated the NFC East? So there's a lot of factors at play. I know one thing: they are confident in the head coach and confident in the quarterback, and that's what you need to win in this league.
I'm glad you mentioned the quarterback. Is there going to be a major adjustment period for him? A lot of rumblings, much more under center, different kind of offense. Brian Dable a year ago, Mike Kafka a year ago wanted to set it up where it was very similar for Jaxson Dart. You're doing the stuff you're doing at Ole Miss. We're going to make it as easy for you, kid, as can be. The word is that's not what this coaching staff's looking to do. They're like, hey, you're doing it our way, and you're going to grow and you're going to get better because of it. But can you see a situation here, Art, where there are some serious growing pains for Jaxson Dart these first couple weeks?
I think we've already seen it, JJ. I don't know about the first couple of weeks of the season, but we've seen it in training camp. And what's interesting is Darnell Mooney, who's a veteran who came in here, hasn't worked with Jaxson Dart, not only said, look, I think Jaxson, one of the reasons why he was so angry at the beginning of training camp with the performance is that he felt like he was having to coach everybody up, that Jaxson wasn't only QB1, Jaxson was being, hey, I got to worry about my receivers running the right routes. You got to know the playbook guys. There's a lot of different things going on. And I think from that perspective, the reason why we've seen a kind of jump from the last couple of days in West Virginia till now in Jersey is that everything is more comfortable and at ease for Jaxson Dart because the people around him are actually picking up the playbook the way he did early on with the time that he put in with John Harbaugh and Brian Callahan and Matt Nagy. So, yeah, will there be growing pains? Absolutely. But I think they would not do this if they did not believe Jaxson Dart could handle it. I don't think this is a situation where square peg, round hole, and we're going to force you to play our way. I think they're looking at it and saying, we can get you to play a certain way and we can pull things out of you that maybe they didn't try to do last year. And that's the other thing, JJ. Think about what Dart did last year. And I know he didn't get the pomp and circumstance that Tyler Shuck did down in New Orleans. And everyone talked about, Cam Ward's going to be so much better with Brian Dable down there. Jaxson Dart had to survive a head coaching change. The guy who believed in you was fired. Then look at all the changes on the defensive side of the ball. Then all the talk about the blue tent and the concussion, and he only missed 2 games, but it seemed like he missed forever. There was a lot thrown at Jaxson Dart last year, and I think coming out of that, he's better for it.
Okay, wide receiver 2 to me is super fascinating. Giants have brought in a lot of bodies. They bring back Odell Beckham Jr. Now, Art, I know people are saying he's having a nice camp. The guy barely has played football the last couple of years. I'm not expecting a whole lot. Then you look at some of the youngsters that are here, some of the other veterans that have been brought in. If there's one guy Art Stapleton's looking at and he's saying, hey, I think he's going to be number 2 wide receiver alongside Neighbors, who is it?
Right off the top, what you've seen in camp, you would say rookie Malachi Fields, just because of the way they want to play offense. They got Greg Roman there designing the run game. John Harbaugh likes his wide receivers to be willing to go out there and block. So I think that, but ultimately, I think this is going to kind of be a mix and match offense. I really think that they're deep enough at the receiver position and maybe not proven enough at wide receiver 2 that you can go into Dallas and say, okay, better fit this week. We know we're going to run the football. Let's play X at the receiver. You know, maybe we need more experience in week 1. So it's going to be Neighbors and a Darius Slayton. You know, maybe you get into week 3 and week 4 against Arizona and you want to spread it out a little bit more. And now you're putting the Darnell Mooney's and Calvin Austins on the field. JJ, I understand the stuff with Odell. And again, Harbaugh said it from the very beginning. This is not OBJ. This is Odell 2.0, and he's got to fit into this offense. You know, he's looked good. I think he has a role on this team. But if you're expecting him to go out there and get 8 to 10 targets in week 1,
that ship is sailed. That ship is sailed.
It's not going to be there. And I don't think Odell at 33 years old, after a year and a half of really doing nothing in the NFL, expects that. I'm sure there are moments in the summer where he feels like, you know what, I can push it more, get me the football, and we'll see. Because when you talk about this offense, there's a lot of options, but not many unproven options weapon-wise. And the last thing I would say is wide receiver 2 is tight end 1. Isaiah Likely has
totally
looked
agree
great this summer.
Totally agree.
So I think you'll end up seeing a lot of 2 tight end sets. I think Likely will play some big slot. You know, he kind of takes over that role that Wan'Dale Robinson had for Jaxson Dart last year, that security blanket inside. Likely's really impressed me this summer as a better route runner than I thought. You know, when I watched him in Baltimore, and we all had him on one fantasy league.
I was going to say, I did. I bet him a lot to score touchdowns. He was one of my guys.
Stop giving the ball to Mark Andrews. Let's go. Likely. He's a much better route runner and a complete player than I thought he was.
Okay. The first pick the Giants made in this revamped regime, Arvell Reese. A lot of people thought he was going to go number 2 to the Jets. That doesn't happen. Falls into the Giants' lap. And then there's this question of, well, how are they going to use him? And the Giants have made it pretty clear. Hey, he's playing linebacker. You know, there was this thought, hey, he's going to be baby Michael Parsons. You're going to see him line up all over the field. Do you get the sense, Art, they are committed to that? Or is that a lot of coach speak and this is the answer in August and the answer in October, November could be drastically different?
I mean, it depends on what happens with this team, but they're solid at pass rusher with Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau. So he's playing inside linebacker. It's him and Tremaine Edmonds. They love what that does in the second level of this defense. I mean, for years, the Giants have been picked apart at inside linebacker. They're too slow. They can't cover. These guys, Reese and Edmonds, have been great in training camp to this point. And, you know, will there be times where in sub packages they're going to move Reese up and over and put him on the line and see, you know, if he can get after the quarterback? Sure. But I do think that, you know, they are legit wanting to play him at inside linebacker, kind of an old school thumper, get in that hole, make the runner feel you. 2 years down the line, can Arvell Reese transition into a full-time edge rusher? That certainly can happen. But I would say Reese is that John Harbaugh linebacker from Baltimore. You know, the idea you want to go all the way back to Ray Lewis. We're not calling him Ray Lewis just yet. But why did they trade for Roquan Smith? You know, why did they have that guy in the middle of that defense? I think that's what they see Arvell Reese as, and I think that's what he was at Ohio State. This isn't a projection. This is, we love who you are, and we think you could be talented in this league, and that's why you're here.
Okay. They lose Dexter Lawrence. He's coming off a down year. No denying that. It was not vintage Dex last season. The problem is, Art, he's a guy that's going to demand a whole lot of attention. And I think the Giants have plenty of guys who could get after the quarterback, but if you can't stop the run, all of a sudden edge rushers are on their heels. Incredibly problematic. Is it Reese? Is it Edmonds bringing him in and hope that he has, you know, a resurgent year? What is the biggest X factor to you as far as the Giants being able to stop the run on a consistent basis?
Yeah, the inside backers are definitely a big part of it, but you know they've mixed and matched up front. I mean, look, they wanted DJ Reader here to complement Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence, I think, was number 1 in double teams last year. DJ Reader was number 2, so it's not that far off. They have Shelby Harris here. I think they're really counting on Darius Alexander to make a leap in year 2 up front. He's had 2 pick sixes this camp, so he's been very impressive. But I think overall it's a commitment to stopping the run, and it starts with the inside linebackers and the guys up front. So, yeah, I say you couldn't stop the run with Dexter Lawrence, so you might as well try another avenue to get there. And I think that, you know, so far they've been pretty good in training camp, but we all know, JJ, Nothing matters until week 1, lights goes on, MetLife Stadium. Let's see you stop the run of the Dallas Cowboys.
Is the biggest question mark with this team the secondary, especially at that corner spot, Art?
Yeah, no doubt, because Paulson Adebo, we've seen him very up and down last year. He was injured. He has not taken the leap that they had hoped this summer yet. They're putting pressure on him. They're trying to move him around. Maybe if we put him on second team, let's make him work. I mean, you're not counting on Tay Banks to all of a sudden be a starter in this secondary, but they hope that they can kind of get a little bit of a resurgence out of that. And Colton Hood, their second-round rookie, they love him. They would love the first week that he would be a starter out there, but right now he's still too raw in coverage. So I think they're going to do a lot of mixing and matching. It would not surprise me if they shop at the end of the summer, see if they could find somebody with Denard Wilson, their defensive coordinator, ties, or even Harbaugh ties to kind of plug and play. But yes, absolutely, you got to cover. You look at what you've got those first 2 weeks, JJ. You got the Cowboys receivers with CeeDee Lamb and Pickens, and then, you go on a Monday night against the Rams, against Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Matt Stafford. You're going to need to cover in this league, and the Giants know that.
Or I feel like if the Giants can get one of the first 2 games, they're really set up. Is that like reading too much into the schedule? And like, this to me is not like in other years with a team I had low expectations where like a rotten start is just going to sabotage them. I don't get the sense that this team could go 0-2 and it just completely spirals out of control. I have too much respect for Harbaugh. I think there's a lot more to work with on this roster. But on a positive angle, I feel like if you get one of these Cowboy or Ram games right out of the gate, kind of sets the Giants up for success here.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, but, we all know this. The Giants may look at the games in week 3 and week 4 in Tennessee and Arizona and say, well, we'll be favored in those. Well, guess what? Tennessee and Arizona look at you as their get-right games, too, when it gets to that point. I mean, one thing about the Rams game, it's on a Monday night at home, but they are coming back from the first ever game in Australia. So that'll be interesting to see how their bodies handle that first game with the Niners. And then the Cowboys in week 1, we know how good their offense is. Will their defense be as improved that people are hoping? We know Parker coming in as DC. The Giants are going to look to test them a little bit. I think the wave of momentum for the Giants right now will carry them into the start of the season. But then once they start, then all eyes go to Harbaugh. And if they're sitting there at 0-2, they can recover, but it's going to be on the head coach to make sure he doesn't lose this young team and the positive momentum that they're gaining in the summer.
All right, Art, final one. Think down the road. Giants will be a playoff team if. How would you answer that question?
If they stay healthy, number one. If Jaxson Dart takes the leap, I think especially as we hit on the secondary, if the secondary is not a weakness, if they can cover, they don't have to be primetime Deion Sanders-esque, as far as secondaries go, or the no-fly zone in Denver, but they need to be able to give this pass rush an opportunity to get after quarterbacks. And if they can do that, I think this team up front defensively is as good as there is in the NFL. Maybe save the Rams of what they've done. So I think that's it. You nailed the key. Let's say Colton Hood becomes a number 1 by the time, or number 2 by the time we reach October. I think this Giants team will be pretty good.
Art Stapleton, he's had a busy summer, back from West Virginia. Now the Jersey calm until the madness of the season begins. Appreciate a couple minutes. Keep killing it on reading, following all that good stuff on the record. I was going to say reading, but like now it's tweets and social media. So I know your job has evolved. Everybody's job has evolved. That's life in 2026. But thanks for a few minutes. Appreciate it. All right.
Awesome, JJ. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
That's the great Art Stapleton. Thanks for joining us. New York Sports Rush. We'll be back Wednesday. Sal Licata, John Jastrzemski. Thanks for joining.